This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In this video, we're going to be teaching you how to use a flower nail, and then we're going to be demonstrating how to make a basic 5-petal flower. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. So let's talk templates. We decided it would be a great idea to make up some nice little templates, so some frequently used divisions for your flower nail, so thirds, quarters, fifths, and sixths, and the 2-inch, and then in the 3-inch, I've got that 5th and 6th because those are the ones we use a lot. And we like to just, give it away to you. So if you're already a yearly member, you can log into your account and print this out. And if you're not, and you're not ready to join yet, or on the fence, or just want the templates, you can always sign up for your email list for the free download. So nice little thank you gift from us to you for watching and being a fan of our little school. But these are a really useful tool to have, and we're going to show you how to set them up. So once you print them out, you can take your scissors and cut out all your circles. And then we are using just plain packing tape. So just the big fat rolls. It's kind of clear cello tape. You can use anything like that. You can use regular tape as long as it's clear. It'll just take more strips. I like that stuff just because it's nice and fat, so you can easily cover the 2-inch ones just with one go. And if you can kind of see that, it's got a little bit of shine there because I've already covered and cut this one out. But it's really easy just to take a strip, go over, and if you need a little room or you got off center, just take a second piece. And you can always do more than one at once. It's not a big deal. And once it's on there, just flip it over on the back and smooth it out. It's okay if it has a few wrinkles. We just want to get it covered, and then we can cut out around it. So it's basically like making your own little lamination for these. And if you want to make them a little sturdier, you can always print them out on cardstock versus regular paper. And if you have access to it and you can laminate things, well, then you're in luck because that'll make them even sturdier, but also more long lasting. So this is just a nice little kind of temporary template that you can use many times. So I like coating them because then when I'm done, I can wipe them off, get rid of the excess buttercream. It keeps the actual template itself, the paper, from soaking up the grease, and it gives it a nice little coating there. And I usually just keep a little bag on hand for my templates, and I pop them in there. So we're going to go ahead off camera and get these ready so that they're ready to use. And I'm going to use the 5-part one today. If you don't have or don't want to print them out, you can always use your parchment and literally just draw on it. So a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'm going to do a little 5-part one today. So if you want to do that, just think about it like head, arms, and legs. And then when you're ready to use it, you just flip it over. So you can see, you can still see it through there. It's not bad, but it's definitely less exacting. Let's see. We get a better, more equal division of spaces when I use the ones I print out versus the ones I just quickly draw myself. So if you don't want to print these out, you don't have to. If you want to follow along with today's video, we just recommend making yourself some little 5-part divisions on the back of your parchment with a nice Sharpie or another marker that won't bleed, that you can flip over and you'll be able to see through. So we're going to go ahead and get these ready, and then we're going to talk some more about your flower nails, how to use them, and what other pieces of equipment you might want to have on hand while you're using them. Let's talk about some of the related materials and equipment we're going to use when we use our flower nails. And in our videos, you'll see we commonly use 2 sizes of flower nails. There we go. The first one is a 2-inch, so that's just the diameter there on top. And the second one is a 3-inch, so larger, better for supporting larger flowers. And you can see that has a nice big fat 3-inch diameter on top. And these are probably the two most common sizes that we'll use, but there's actually a lot of sizes and styles of flower nails available. There's even some great Y-shaped ones for making cupped blossoms with a nice kind of trumpet shape. So there's a lot of options out there for you. I prefer the ones, get it up close, you can see it, that have the nice thread. So you can see it's almost like a screw there on the bottom. It has a little bit of texture to it, and it gives you just a slightly better grip when you're turning it. So I like that. They also sell them smooth. It's a good idea to give both styles a try and see what you personally prefer, because a lot of this stuff is in fact personal preference. But if you're watching any of your flower series videos, we'll either pull out one of these larger 3-inch nails or a smaller 2-inch nail. And it's pretty simple. Bigger blossoms on the bigger one, smaller ones on the small one. Another thing you might kind of see kind of off in the background or to the side is a nail block. And this one came with the set of nails, and I just gave it a little coat of white paint. It's just a tiny little wood block, and you can see it's got a nice little hole drilled there in the top so that you can pop your nail down in there when you're not using it. And that's kind of important when we're changing bags, setting ourselves up, maybe changing angles. If you've got to put something down and rest, this will hold that nail upright so that if you're in the middle of working on a flower, your flower doesn't go sliding off to the side. And if you don't have one of these, a lot of people, when they do cake decorating, you've got some floral foam on hand, or maybe if you did some other crafting, or you can just pick some up cheap at a craft store. This is just basically that nice green kind of porous craft foam. I use it a lot for drying gum paste pieces, but it also comes in handy if you don't have a nail block. And I recommend using a big piece because it's lighter weight, so especially if you have something on the nail, you don't want it to flop over from the weight of that, but you can just poke yourself a few little holes so that they're kind of prepped, and those nails can slot into those and be upright. And one of the reasons that we like using these is, in addition to giving you a nice spot to rest, if you're in the middle of working on a flower and you need to, say, readjust your hold on the nail or your bag, it's also that you can put it in there and use this as a bit of a guide to help you spin. So you can see my nail is straight up and down. If you have any mobility issues or anything like arthritis that you're dealing with, or maybe any issues with your fine motor skills, being able to support that nail and just give it a little twist might help out a little bit, or even being able to manipulate it here if you're having any problems with that kind of pinching, rolling motion. And we'll review a little bit about how to hold and roll your nail as well. But if you're having any issues like that, because we've had some comments in the past where people have said, you know, they either have arthritis or they've had a stroke and they're having some issues with their hands and that mobility or achiness, try using the block to assist you with turning and spinning. It might take a little pressure off and make the skills a little easier. The other thing that we're going to use a lot are parchment squares. I like to pipe on parchment, transform my flowers to trays, and then chill them so that they're nice and firm. So I keep a lot of 2-inch and 3-inch squares to use with the 2 nails that I make common use of. And I also keep a little baggie on hand, and I just keep a nice little stock of them in my drawer with my other cake decorating supplies. So that they'll always have a nice stock of those cut and ready to go. If you cut out cake circles for your cake pans, a lot of times there's scrap. You can cut that scrap into nice little squares for yourself so you always have a nice little stock on hand. I'm going to use those templates that we've already prepared. And I like using just a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of the template to help stick it to the nail. If you don't want or need to use this, you can always use some buttercream. So those are some of the other things that you might see happening both on and off camera as far as equipment goes. We're going to go over how to hold your flower nail and really how to use it right now. So you want to think of your flower nail as an extension of your hand, right? We're using it to control the rate we're spinning, which is going to control how our petals go on when it's moving. And I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be holding my bag with my right hand, so I'm going to be spinning my flower nail with my left, which is definitely less coordinated than my right. So to start with, you really want to make sure that you take some time just getting used to spinning your flower nail before you really start piping flowers, because otherwise you're getting used to two things at once, and that can be a little more difficult. So we want to make it easier on ourselves. So we want to make sure that we are holding our nail properly and that we're comfortable spinning it, both pushing forward and retracting and kind of speeding up and slowing down a little bit so that you're really comfortable with that motion and it feels like muscle memory before we move on to piping flowers. And that'll make your piping of flowers easier because there'll be less things to focus on. If we're focusing on too many new tasks at once, it's going to feel much more difficult than it is. So let's talk about first how we're going to hold it. We're going to line up the nail, so the actual nail that's coming out of that nice big top for us, with the second joint on our index finger. So first one, second one, so right there. And then we're going to use our thumb to hold that in place. And we're also going to use our thumb to push, right? So that was spinning it counterclockwise, and retract, spin it clockwise. And we want to practice spinning it, keeping it level, and once you got that going good, changing the rate. So we want to hold our nail straight up and down, right? Because if you hold it at an angle, you're piping at an angle. And so we want to make sure that we're holding that nice and level, straight up and down, and that we can push it and get a nice smooth spin and going all the way to the tips of our fingers and then pulling all the way back. And I'm going to show you that on the side just because it's going to be easier to visualize, obviously. So push all the way to those fingertips with your thumb and then push all the way back. And try going slow. And once that's kind of comfortable, go a little faster. So you can kind of change that rate, change that speed that you're pushing, and just play around with it. So there's just a few things to work on. Holding it level, so nice and straight up and down, nice and perpendicular for yourself, so we're piping on a nice level surface, and also pushing smoothly. So we get a nice little rotation, a good spin, and pulling back, so it feels really comfortable. And the more comfortable you are working with your nail and pushing it, the better things are going to turn out for you, right? It's going to be easier to pipe your flowers because you won't have to focus so much on spinning the nail. You can focus on your piping. So make sure that you're comfortable holding that nail and you're comfortable spinning it before you get started. We're going to mix some colors now, and I'm going to make two shades, a pink and a yellow. We're going to use two liquid gel colors, some neon bright pink, and some lemon yellow. And this is going to give us some color for our petals and also for our centers. And we're using just our American style buttercream. You can use any kind of buttercream really that you like for these. It should always work. So if you want to use something like Italian or Swiss, that's fine. It'll just affect the way the buttercream takes the color a little bit. So I've just got a little bit down in there in my bowl because we're going to make a couple of flowers, but not too many. And I'm just going to give myself a little, like half drop, give it a squeeze and then touch the surface of some pink because I want to make a nice pink color, but I don't want to make it too intense or bright. We'll just get that mixed around. And this should just give us a nice, cheerful pink. And we're using the American style just because it's easy to make for beginners and because it's also easy to color. So you can see that gives us a nice, lovely pink for our flower petals. Our second color is going to be some yellow. And you can see I've just got a little bit of buttercream down in the bowl. We're using it for centers, so we don't really need a lot, just enough so that we can get it in the bag and get a good hold on it. And I'm going to do the same thing, just a small, little like half drop of that yellow. Just so we have a bright and cheerful little center in the middle of our flowers. And if you need to or want to, you can always use more color. You can always make brighter, more intense shades or you can go lighter with it and make more pastel. We're just making some kind of generic 5-petal flowers today. So just some really basic flowers just to kind of introduce you to working with your flower nail. So they're not specifically inspired by anything. So if pink isn't your jam or you want to make a different color center, go for it. Use whatever food colorings you've got on hand and make yourself some pretty shades to practice with. But that's going to be a nice yellow next to our pink for our centers. We're going to use 2 bags and 2 different tips for this project. So they're both 12-inch disposable, and I've fitted them directly with the tips. We've fitted the bag of pink with a number 104 petal tip. So you can see it's got that nice teardrop shaped opening. And I've gone ahead and put a number 5 on my bag with my yellow. So a larger round tip that we're going to use to create a nice little simple center for our flower. Let's review the techniques we're going to use for our 5-petal flower. So the first thing we're going to do is teardrop petals. These are very simple petals that you can use to create a lot of different blossoms in variety once you've mastered them. So it's a great place to start if you've never piped a flower on a flower nail before. We're going to start with our bag in the flat position. So you might hear us talk about angles sometimes. Flat is nearly flat. It's not completely against the surface, right? It's kind of as flat as we can comfortably get versus a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle, which would be straight up and down, kind of in the middle. And then this is a little more extreme, so it's kind of close to the surface. We're going to have the fat end of the opening of our petal tip kind of touching the center of our flower nail, which will be easy to judge because we'll have our little template under there. And the back of the bag is facing, if we imagine a clock face on our nail, towards 3 o'clock. So that's going to put the opening of the tip kind of pointing up almost towards noon. And what we're going to do is start squeezing. We're going to pull out towards the edge of our nail, rotate the nail while holding, and then pull back. It's a little hard to do on the tray. You'll notice I had to rotate the tray a little bit, and it'll be a little easier and less awkward to demo again when we have our flower nail out. But we just want to give you the basic idea. You're pulling out, holding while you spin your nail, and then pulling back. And it's going to give you that nice little teardrop shape. And you can see there's the line that we make in the center of that petal because we pull out and then pull back right next to it. So it allows that frosting to join up and make that nice teardrop shape for us. So it's a very simple motion where we start with that fat end fixed towards the center, pull out towards the edge of our nail, spin, and then pull back. And that's what gives us the shape of our petal. We'll do this 5 times to create a 5-petal flower. The second technique we're going to use, dots. We're going to use a number 5 tip. If you don't have a 5 tip, you could use a 4 or 6, anything kind of close to that number. We want to be able to create a nice sized dot in the center of our flower to make a center with without it being too big or too tiny. And when we're creating dots, we want to be up off the surface. So there should be a little gap between the opening of the tip and the surface we're piping on. We're going to be straight up and down, so think a 90-degree angle. And we're just going to squeeze. Let that frosting connect and balloon out. And when you reach that full width, stop and circle around. So as soon as you hit your desired width, you release your pressure on your bag and just gently, while holding it still level to that surface, circle around and off, and that'll give you a nice smooth on your dot versus a Hershey's Kiss. We're going to review now and go over how to put those techniques we just discussed together to build a nice little blossom. And we're just making a nice little 5-petal blossom, so it doesn't even really have a name. We're going to start with our bag of pink with our 104 tip, and we're going to create that first petal. Remember to set yourself up nicely. Anchor the fat end in the center, skinny end pointing out towards the edge of the nail. The back end of our bag is going to be at 3. We're in our lay flat position, and we're going to pull out towards the edge of the nail, spin, and then pull back to make that first petal. And we're going to use our 5-segment template to help kind of guide us and give us some great spacing. So you just want to make that first petal in one of those sections. And then we're going to spin our nail a little bit and put on a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. So I'm just gonna work clockwise, putting on my petals because that's gonna work well for me because I'm right-handed. If you're a lefty, you can just kind of reverse that. So we'll pipe 4 more blossoms, and we're only gonna do something really different and special on the last one. So on our last petal, as we come back, right? So we've spun on the outside edge to create that nice curve, and we're starting to pull back. If you need to, if you're close to this first one and you're at risk of maybe damaging it as you pull the tip back to the center, just take the back of the bag and go from lay flat to like 45 degrees. That'll kind of adjust that little opening and allow you to slide in there, hopefully without damaging your first petal. And we'll talk about that while we're doing it as well. Once we've got all 5 petals on and we like our spacing, we'll change bags, grab our bag of yellow with our number 5, and we'll pipe that nice dot in the center to finish off our blossoms. We're getting ready to work on our flower nails, so I've just got all the little bits that I'm gonna need ready to go. I've got a tray lined with some parchment paper that I can put my finished flowers on, and you just want to keep that next to you so it's easy to transfer them off the nail. I've got some extra squares of parchment paper that are sized for my 2-inch flower nail, which you can see I've already stuck my little template on. I used a little bit of my double-sided tape to just get that on there because it's nice and tacky and I can peel it on and off. But if you don't have that, you can just use a little bit of extra buttercream. And I've got my 2 bags ready to go, and I'm using my little block because that way when I switch between my pink and my yellow, if I need to, I can put that nail down with the flower on there without worrying about things sliding off or falling over. And I've got some little pieces of parchment ready to go. So just first thing I want to do is make sure that I've got a nice dab of buttercream in the center to affix that parchment paper down. And you can see my parchment paper is in place over my flower nail, over my template. You can see through it nicely and nothing's sliding off. So that's perfect. That's set us up. We're ready to start piping a flower. Now let's begin piping. We're all ready to go. I'm holding my flower nail so it's nice and straight up and down. I've got my parchment stuck on there. I've got my bag of pink with my 104 tip. I'm going to take it and just touch the center with the opening, right? So the fat end of the opening, and you can see the skinny end is pointing kind of like towards noon from my point of view, and the back of the bag is off towards 3 o'clock. We're kind of in that nice lay flat position so that we can make some nice petals. And I just want to rock the skinny end of the tip off the surface a little bit, right? If we go completely flat against the surface, it's gonna make our petals look a little droopy, and we want our flowers to look like they have a little life. So if things are looking a little flat, just make sure when you start piping that the skinny end of the tip is just up off the surface and only that fat end is connecting with it. So we're going to start squeezing, pull out, rotate, and pull back. And you can see the bag really stays in the same orientation. We're just sliding it out, holding and spinning, and pulling back. Now we'll just rotate our nail a little bit. So we're right next to the one we just did, and repeat the same process. Beautiful. And I'm just gonna go around and pipe a petal in each of those sections. If you get any breaks or tears along the edge of your petals, it probably means you need to spin just a little slower. The other answer is to squeeze harder, but if you're just starting out, which you probably are if you're watching this video, that's not really a great answer because it takes a long time to build up hand strength. So if you get little tears, try just rotating a little slower. Now you can see I've made 4 petals. We're coming to that last one, which means we're going to start in our lay flat position, pull out, spin, and as we pull back, you'll notice I'll rock the back end of the bag up to squeeze in that last petal so that I don't damage the first one. So start out flat, rotate, rock up to get that last one in there. And it might give it a little bit of an edge, but that's all right. We want to make sure we don't damage anything, and it's okay if it looks just a little bit different. Now that we've got our 5 petals on there, we want to go ahead and grab our bag with our number 5 tip and our yellow, and we're going to create some centers. So straight up and down, just above the surface, which in this case is the surface of the flower, and we want to squeeze. Let that line connect, create a nice, beautiful dot. When you reach a good size, stop squeezing and circle around. And there we have a beautiful, basic 5-petal blossom that we've created on our flower nail using our template. And a lot of times when we're making our flower series videos, we get questions about how we get the flowers on the cake. The first step is simply to take this, slide it off, and place it on a tray. So you can see it's right there. It's very easy. Get your nail close to your tray, slide it off, and put it on. If you need a little assistance or support for your flowers, these are pretty small, they don't really need it. You can always use a spatula to help lift them off and place them on your tray. And then we're gonna put this tray in the refrigerator. Since our frosting has butter in it, that's gonna get it nice and firm. Really, these are small. They maybe only take 15-20 minutes to get nice and solid. And then we'll be able to remove them from the papers and place them on our cakes and other creations with ease. Our little flowers have had some time to chill, and this is kind of the last step that you don't normally see on camera for us with using your flower nail. We slid our little flowers off our nail, and because they're on parchment paper, they're easy to handle. We chilled them. Really, these are very thin and very small, so it doesn't take long. Really, 15-20 minutes at the most, and they should be nice and firm and easy to handle. Depending on the temperature of your environment, how warm your buttercream was to start, and how cold your refrigerator is, that could always vary. But since they're low profile, it shouldn't take too long. If you're doing bigger flowers or ones that are thicker or have more body, they will take longer to chill. But as you can see, they're easy to handle because they're on that paper. We had them on a nice clean tray, and now we've got a cute little plain iced cupcake that we want to add some flowers to, probably just one. Take a little extra buttercream of any color you have, or if, say maybe you made some green and you want to pipe some leaves. All it really takes is a nice little dot so we have something to adhere to, not too big because we don't want it to show through. And then you can pick these up. I poked mine, which is why I always make extra. And you can gently remove them from the paper. And you can use an offset spatula if you like, or honestly, you can even just use your fingers. They're going to be nice and firm, so they should be easy to slide off and then gently place right there. And you can see it's very easy to pipe on the paper, to slide that paper onto a tray, and once they're chilled, you can very easily place them on your creations. So you can use this method to stick them onto cupcakes like we have here, to cakes, and various other treats, and it's going to make them nice and easy to handle for you. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see some other things like making some piped leaves to add a little extra flair to these, we've got a great video on how to use your leaf tip. If you're looking for another challenge on using your flower nail, you can try some of our basic videos like making daisies or a basic rose. And if you want even more of a challenge, maybe try something like our dahlia or peony. We hope you enjoyed this lesson and you'll check out more. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.